Hello guys and welcome back to Patrick's Basement. Nice to see you again. We are slowly moving towards the Christmas season, but with today's review, it's already Christmas for me. When I look at these figures, I immediately think of things like beautiful Gotham City in Tim Burton style, a psychopathic cat, penguins with rockets on their backs, and not forgetting the music by Danny Elfman. And I'll show you whether the characters do as well for me as the film. Let's start with the packaging, and the first thing you notice is that it's a bit larger. Well, that's no wonder because it's just mentioned even if the same person, there are both Batman and Bruce Wayne in it. Like here it's nice to see that both are pictured. In the background we see the Gotham City skyline at night. Since this film is set during the Christmas season, we see some snowflakes falling from the sky. Very nice. On the bottom there is the Bat logo surrounded by snow. What's special here is that the packaging is smooth, except for the Bat logo, which is rough. Also very nicely done, I like that. Below is the film title, in this case Batman Returns. There are Batman and Bruce Wayne lettering on the left and right sides. The back is black except for a part that represents the Bat logo, actually just the head if you like, which is great. The outlines can be clearly seen here. Ultimately we still have the credits. If we open the packaging, there is a layer inside on which we can immediately see the Bat logo with the words Batman and Bruce Wayne, and at the bottom the cast and crew, the employees who worked on these figures. The whole thing is rounded off against with snowflakes. Our figures are then underneath the layer. I'm known to be an advocate of Michael Keaton, specifically of his portrayal of his version of Batman. I would even go so far as to say that Keaton and Bale would share the top spot on my Batman rankings, even though they couldn't be more different. But we are not currently in a competition as to who is the better Batman. No! We take a closer look at our figures. I would like to start with Bruce Wayne, and a little later we will move on to Batman. Here we see Bruce Wayne in a tuxedo, even if I personally would have chosen the Bruce Wayne version with a turtleneck, but apparently you have, when designed Bruce Wayne, they decided to take a part in the annual Max Festival and Masquerade Ball in which Bruce and Selina took part. And that's a good thing, that makes sense. It's a key scene, so to speak. Bruce and Selina dancing with each other and their arms, and with the sentences, mistletoes can be deadly if you eat it, but a kiss can be even deadlier if you mean it. They both knew Selina is Catwoman and Bruce is Batman, so we have a delicate situation here. And we have Bruce in a tuxedo. But first I want to talk about the face, which is okay for me, and unfortunately only okay. There is no question that it's Michael Keaton, but something bothers me about the sides, and I can't help it. The nose, the ears, and of course the unmistakable mouth. I could recognize Keaton from all the Batman actors based on his mouth alone. All this worked out really well. I think the problem is the eyes and the associated facial expression. Of course, lighting condition and camera angles play a role, but when we look at the movies, Bruce Wayne looks more reserved and thoughtful. I would have preferred a more neutral facial expression here. The expression here is almost angry. But I have a suspicion as to why this facial expression was chosen. As is well known, Bruce Wayne doesn't just go to masked balls for fun, but later finds himself in a completely different situation. But I would like to talk about that later. The hair is also completely fine, looks really good, the whole thing as sculpted hair. The tuxedo is made of a thicker material and fits really well and smoothly. The sleeves could definitely have been a little longer. When you bend your arms, the joints quickly become visible. This is a bit annoying and doesn't look particularly nice. You also have the options of opening and closing the tuxedo using a push button. Underneath there is a white ribbed shirt. At the top of the collar we see a bow tie. Further down we see a black belt. It's made of faux leather. The pants are made of slightly thinner material than the tuxedo and are long enough to cover the shoes. There are black socks underneath. The shoes are completely made of plastic with shine effect. Let's move on to mobility. The head can be rotated 360 degrees and works back and forth without any problems. Unfortunately, the torso cannot be rotated much or at all, which is exactly what it looked like when we try to push the torso forward or backward. The arms can be extended to the sides by about 80 degrees, so when I stretch forward we reach 70 degrees. Angling works perfectly. The legs can be extended to 70 degrees. Angling works here too without any problems. The feet can easily be aligned forward and even sideways. The figure is so well balanced that we can do without the base. As far as accessories go, we only have 8 interchangeable hands and the base. And if I'm not mistaken, it's exactly the same base from my Batman and Robin 1966 review, except for the printed logo, of course. It's also oval and is made entirely of plastic. Here we see the Bat logo in the snow, similar to the packaging. Below is the plaque with the name Bruce Wayne. I would say we give Mr. Wayne a moment to change, because now we're moving on to part 2 if we want. We come to Batman. In most cases, as soon as there is a sequel to a film, especially when it comes to comic book films, the costume gets an upgrade. There are certainly positive and negative changes. When we look at Batman, we realize relatively quickly that the film studios doesn't stop at making changes with Batman Returns either. In my opinion, there is a positive and negative change when it comes to the optics. I would like to focus on the positive aspect first, and for me that would be the mask, which looks significantly better than its predecessor. Personally, I think this version of the mask is better than in Batman from 1989. In the mask before, the nose was a lot wider and around the eye area a little bigger, so that looked like the mask was a little too big. In Batman Returns, the mask was adjusted better and fits more to the face, and simply looks better without wanting to condemn the previous mask. I don't think we need to go into the face any further. I would much rather talk about the eyes, because even though it's not a DX variant, we still have the option of putting the eyes in any position. The only difference between the DX figure and this one is that you could move the eyes in parallel with a joystick. Things are a little different with this figure. Here the eyes are moved separately. All we have to do is remove the cover at the back of the head. Inside the head there are both joysticks, which we can possibly move with your fingers. That's where this neat thing comes into the play. What at first glance looked like a small flashlight is nothing more than an extension to align the joysticks and get your eyes in the position you want. But that's not all, because this nice thing here has another function, but I get to that later. The suit isn't exactly popular with some fans, and I think the main criticism is, and we don't have to look far, you can see the biggest change at first glance, and that is abdominal area. The previous suit focused more on the human anatomy. This means we saw every single muscle of the upper body, chest, biceps, abdominal muscle, and so on. Everything is very smooth with this suit. Visually it looks like he is wearing a black knight armor. The funny thing is that this exact suit appears in the Flash movie. and it in turn gets a new upgrade. As if to say, look, we found a better use for the suit. That's just kidding, the suit isn't that bad. The entire suit is made of rubber, rather padded rubber. You can see how it gives in when I press it a little. And here's a small request for you. Should you own this figure or maybe buy it, don't make the mistake of placing this figure in the display case with its arms or legs bent. After a certain amount of time in such a position, the material will tear, do your poses, take pictures, and then it's best to go back into the display case with your arms relaxed. The cape is really well done, it's made of faux leather, and what is important is the fact that it's not made of 2 layers and is therefore relatively thin. I just don't like it when a figure's cape is too thick and the figure then looks so fluffy. However, good job was done here, the cape is just right, and as you can see, it fits really well and looks really good. And there is still a problem, unfortunately, because the cape is so thin, it also makes it vulnerable. And at this point I have to mention the fins on the gauntlets, which are way too sharp for my taste. Before I buy a figure I usually look reviews by myself. In fact, this topic has already been addressed. I left it off a bit and thought, oh come on, they won't be that sharp. But believe me, they're really sharp. All I can tell you is that if you value your cape, then you really have to be careful, otherwise you'll have extinguishers in it faster than you can see. In fact, unfortunately, this happened to me while filming this video, believe me, it's annoying. As is well known, the BAT logo has changed a bit over the years, but I think this version of the BAT logo should be familiar to everyone. And to this day, it is probably the most common logo that can be seen everywhere. To my surprise, I decided to leave the belt as it is, and here too, like the 98 version of Batman, the belt on the right side is magnetic. I show you why this is so in a moment. The boots are in one piece and not separate. Here we have a kind of a shin armor that goes down to the feet. If we look closer, we can see that the BAT logo has been incorporated. We know that a certain brand of sneakers was used under the shin armor for better comfort. The secret has now been revealed by Michael Keaton himself. Let's move on to mobility, since we are not yet in the Bale era and they hasn't given much thought to whether and how Batman could turn his head. Unfortunately, the figure behaves like the original E8, the head doesn't move, turn left or right, nothing works forward or backwards either. As expected, the torso can hardly be turned because the suit is made entirely of rubber and this limits us massively. The arms can only be extended to the sides by 45 degrees. The same applies to reaching forward. Angling works without any problems, thanks to ratchet joint. The legs can hardly or not be stretched out at all. And although we are limited when bending them, they can at least move a little more. Here we reach about 80 degrees thanks to ratchet joint. Why were ratchet joints used here? Well, I think we are so massively restricted here by the suit that as soon as you bend your arms or legs, they spring back because of the padded rubber. So they try to counteract the whole thing. As just mentioned, the boots are made of plastic and are in one piece, which is on one hand looks good, but turns out to be difficult when it comes to mobility. Unfortunately, the feet cannot be moved at all. And here too, we can do certainly without the base. Let's move on to accessories! We have 9 interchangeable hands, 1 zipline, 1 remote control for the Batmobile, 1 grapple gun, 1 jamming signal box, 2 napalm grenades, 3 different mouthpieces, 1 remote controlled batarang, and finally a cowl and a torn mask. Let's start with the base, and this feels like the third time I've presented this because both the 89 version of Batman and the 89 version of the Joker have the same construction. The only difference were in the logo. As I said, the structure is the same here. The logo in the middle has been adapted to the current film, and since it takes place around Christmas time, it is quite fitting to make the logo look like it was on the packaging it would be in a snowstorm. Another nice thing is that the base is illuminated just like the others before. We see two small lamps in the front, left and right, aligned to illuminate it or thicker. Then at the bottom we have a silver plaque with the name Batman. Next we have the zip line that was used when Batman had to save the Ice Princess from Penguin and Catwoman. We have the option to removing the hooks that can be seen at the front and back and replacing them with the two ropes included in the packaging. All you have to do is remove the hooks. At the end of each rope you will see a golden split pin that you have to insert into the front and back openings. Once you have done that, the whole thing looks like this. Let's get to the Batmobile remote control. I think every driver would want this for their car. With this remote control, Batman has the ability to control the Batmobile without sitting in it himself or opening and closing the protective shield. The remote control is really small. In the middle we see the Bat logo in silver. The speakers are located at the top and the back. Next we have the Grapple Gun. And I think this is one of Batman's most famous pieces of equipment alongside the Batarang. Visually it looks really good, I really like it. At the front we see the same hooks as on the zipline. There is something special about the handle, it can be folded out. And if we take a closer look at the lower area, we notice that there is a magnet there. And as I just mentioned, your belt is also magnetic. So if you want, you can hang your grapple gun on the Bat belt. What else do we have? I'm not sure about this nice little box. At first I thought I was actually there to lead the Reverse Penguin, who were heading towards Gotham Square to destroy the city back to the zoo, but I think it's actually a trigger that activate the rockets there on the Penguin's backs. The irony is that this was the Penguin himself who pulled the trigger. The most remarkable thing is, as small as the box is, you can still press the shutter button. That is in the middle. I hope you can see it. We also have the option to hanging the box, which is also magnetic, on the Bat belt, and that's really cool. We also have two napalm grenades that Batman had to use while standing on the roof with Catwoman. Who brings napalm on their first date? There are not good prospects for a second date. Anyway, the grenades are gold and very flat. On the upper edge we can see the napalm liquid in the blue case, which comes out as soon as Batman throws it at his opponent. With the Batarang, we also come to one of my favorite scenes of Batman Returns, which many of you may still remember. Batman fights his way through an alley against the Red Triangle Circus gang, when he was suddenly surrounded by 4 opponents. Okay, let's say 5. Batman had no choice but to draw his modified Batarang. Here is seen a screen that shows 4 opponents. The Batarang flies independently to its target in order to eliminate them. However, the dog doesn't think it's all that funny and catches the Batarang in the air and disappears. All that's left is a stunned Batman. A really funny scene. Of course, with this figure we also have the option of giving Batman different facial expressions. We have a total of 3 different mouthpieces. 1 closed mouth and 2 with open mouths. Although I have to say that in 2 out of 3 there is hardly any difference. If we look at both side by side, we can see that the mouth on the right side is slightly, but really only slightly, more open than on the mouthpiece next to it. This time the mouthpieces are not held by a magnet as usual, but simply attached, and that's where this part is used for the second time. We remember that we used it to position the eyes, and now we needed to change the mouthpieces. We simply remove the back part of the head as before and press the mouthpieces outwards from the inside. Now simply attach the expression you want and you're done. Since we're talking about facial expressions, let's move to my personal highlight, and that's the cowl. And I'm overjoyed that it was included. One of my favorite scenes is when Bruce tries to convince Selina to go to his castle with him to be happy there. When he realized that he probably didn't have as much influence as Batman as he wanted, Bruce Wayne had to make an appearance, so he tore off his mask and showed his true colors. It didn't matter that Max Schreck was standing right next to him, he just wanted Selina. So we have the cowl and the mask. All we need now is Bruce Wayne's head. I think you know where this is going. We remove the head of our Bruce Wayne figure and the same applies to our Batman figure. Next we put the cowl on the shoulders and put Bruce Wayne's head back on. Complete. And if we look at the face again, in the Batsuit it looks different to me than in the tuxedo. That's the look on Bruce's face when he just took off his mask and asked Selina to come with him. I actually wish Hot Toys had thought about including a second head. It would have been really great to have a Bruce Wayne with a scratched face. We remember that Selina scratched Bruce's left cheek towards the end of the film. That would have been perfect in my opinion. It is what it is. As I said, I'm still happy that the cowl even made it in the packaging. As you can see, it looks really good and that's what ultimately matters. My conclusion, Batman is my absolute favorite hero, and if you have the opportunity to get both Bruce Wayne and Batman, then you take the opportunity and grab it. Especially when it's the Keaton Batman. Unfortunately, in my opinion, the implementation of Michael Keaton's face wasn't particularly successful. The visible joints that appear as soon as you bend your arms just a little don't look particularly nice either. Nevertheless, the demand from Keaton fans is so high that they decided to upgrade not only the '89 version of Batman, but also the Batman Returns figure. A few weeks ago, the first pictures with the significantly improved head sculpt of Bruce Wayne were published. As soon as Bruce puts on his Batsuit, the whole thing looks a little different, and I think whether you like the suit or not, the figure is visually very well implemented and looks impressive. Unfortunately, when it comes to mobility, we are so limited by the padded rubber suit that the figure can hardly be moved. In addition, there are the very sharp fins on the gauntlets, which will leave 1 or 2 holes in your cape if you don't pay attention to them. As mentioned before, I pay more attention to the visuals, and in this case, Batman simply scores better than Bruce. My rating is as follows. And what you can do with both of them, I'll show you now. Even though Keaton is the main character in Batman Returns and I really appreciate him, of course it's not the only reason for enthusiasm I feel for this film. I mean, we are seeing a Danny DeVito like never before. We see an incredible Michelle Pfeiffer who you could say plays two personalities and could be more different. On the one hand, Max Schreck's secretary, and on the other hand, Catwoman. And I wish Hot Toys would make the effort to bring figures like this to the market, but instead we get this. Honestly, would you feel comfortable spending money on characters like that? I feel good, or rather with a clear conscience I can draw attention to the next review for we returning to Middle-earth, because in the next review I will introduce none other than Gandalf the White from Asmus Toys. It will definitely be exciting to see how Asmus performs in this channel in the second attempt after Legolas. But until then, I would like to say goodbye from now, and all that's left to say is don't forget, if you look for toys, then Patrick's your choice. See you then!